I dearly hope that there's a special place in hell waiting for you, Arthas.
We may never know, Uther. I intend to live forever.
Finally, somebody that gets it. I knew I liked Prince Arthas. After Arthas' successful crusade against Mal'Ganis, I asked him if he'd be willing to do another Deathless run. Unfortunately, the good prince didn't know that Deathless and Undead don't mean the same thing, but we'll make it work. Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is GiantGrantGames here with the second part of the Warcraft 3 Deathless series. If you missed part 1, you can find it right here. And here's a quick refresher of the rules of the run. Now I'm just stalling for a few seconds so you can read the rules. Okay, let's get into it. Arthas' first stop is Trudging Through the Ashes, a no-build mission where he must avoid his adoring fans while rescuing 24 acolytes. Arthas is escorted by 2 ghouls. Their low HP and damage means they're not helping. Normally, the game expects me to sneak around and avoid the village defenders while rescuing the militia, but Arthas has a horse now. I don't know where he found this horse, and I don't know why he didn't have one before, but he's fast now, so I won't complain. Rescuing the acolytes is easy. All Arthas has to do is walk near them and they teleport away automatically. The enemy even ignores them, so there's zero risk. There's a graveyard where Arthas can raise skeletons. I decided to avoid it for now. I wasn't sure if they had timed lives or not, and I didn't want to find out. I thought that completing the mission would leave me underleveled, but apparently rescuing acolytes gives experience. This lets Arthas get level 2 and grabs me the fantastic Unholy Aura ability. After running through a bandit camp, I burst down the town gates. This area is filled with tiny corridors and lots of enemies. I have to be careful. At one point, I was sure that I had gotten trapped, but this guy went on his lunch break at the right time and let Arthas through. After grabbing everybody in town, I had 23 of 24 acolytes. Apparently I missed somebody. I returned to the graveyard to raise the skeletons for rule number 2, and eventually found the final acolyte. While the previous campaign in Northrend was a resounding success, Arthas had one lingering regret. He murdered Kel'Thuzad in cold blood. Paladins can normally raise the dead, but Arthas never bothered learning how to do so because his soldiers never died. If he wants to atone for his sin, he'll have to get creative. Digging up the dead is a 2-part mission. In the first part, Arthas and his entourage of ghouls and meat wagons have to secure Kel'Thuzad's grave. After that, Arthas has to ask his good friend Uther for a bowl to carry the bones in. Luckily, Arthas' dad has a really nice bowl that Arthas can borrow. Thanks, King Tyrannus. The objective of digging up the dead is super unique. There are 4 human paladins scattered around the map that need to be destroyed. Each is guarded by a progressively stronger force of enemies. These paladins are really scary. They have the Holy Light spell, which can take a huge chunk out of a ghoul's hit points. Each time a ghoul is blasted, Arthas has to heal him up with Death Coil. Once I get a base, I build a giant defensive line. Honestly, I was overly afraid of what the AI might send at me, and went a bit too far. After building an army of ghouls, I move out. The paladin rallies a ton of footmen, but most of them can be pulled without the paladin himself, making it an easy fight. The paladin is level 4, and he goes down pretty quickly. The third paladin is the reverse. He has some strong defense inside of his base, including a tower, but he can be pulled outside with just a couple of knights and eliminated. The final paladin is Uther. Uther is level 10 and has the maximum level on all of his abilities. Level 3 Holy Light does 300 damage. 1 auto attack and 1 Holy Light will kill a ghoul. I'm gonna have to improvise. Because I haven't built in a few minutes, my money is pretty high. I grab an acolyte and run it past Uther's defenses and start building an Acropolis and a few spirit towers. Once the towers are complete, I pull Uther into them with Arthas and use the brilliant strategy of running in circles until he dies. Into the Eternal Realm is a really boring mission. After destroying an elven outpost, I take it. Each path to the enemy bases is blocked by trees. Eventually, either meat wagons or ghouls will have to knock them down for me to progress out of my base. But as long as the trees remain, the enemy can't attack me. I decide the best course of action is to max out my supply before doing anything else. It's really dull. I'm given the Necromancer, who can either summon skeletons with timed life or damage units over time in order to give them an attack increase. They also die really quickly. Hard pass on them. The elven forces are pretty scary. They're all low durability, high damage units, meaning that each fight threatens the run. This, combined with my lack of a good all-round unit, means that I have to mass meat wagons. This is not ideal. The wagon splash damage hurts my units as well, meaning the wagons tend to damage Arthas as much as the enemies. Sylvanas Windrunner leads the elven attack forces. She is one of those niche characters that was never important after Warcraft 3, so I won't waste my time talking about her. There are some tense moments keeping my army alive. but once I get to the final enemy base, I'm feeling pretty good. One nice thing about meat wagons is that they kill enemy bases really quickly. In the Key of the Three Moons, we get to see Sylvanas' tactical brilliance. She uses Starfall to collapse a bridge. The undead have no way to deal with this, and I'm forced to hire some goblin zeppelins to get around. I raid an elven base, grab its gold mine, and fortify the area. The elves send some large attack waves from multiple angles. I end up being forced into a ton of static defense, not because the attacks are that scary, but instead because the game starts me with a couple of necromancers, and they need babysitting. I unlock the Crit Fiend, a ranged all-rounder unit with no huge weakness, and can be healed with Death Coil unlike the Meat Wagon. I make a ton of them. The eastern key fragment is the easiest to reach. I use my zeppelins to drop near it, clear the defenders, and grab it. Moving towards the northern key is where things get absurd. I end up landing around the time Sylvanas moves out to attack me, and end up in this incredible battle. Both of us are constantly picking up and dropping off units with our zeppelins to micro them, while I fight the elven forces on both flanks. This was an awesome test of my unit micromanagement, and I think that it's one of my favorite battles that I've ever had in the Deathless series. Once that army falls, the final fragment is easy to grab in comparison. The end of the mission requires me to land my forces near the enemy gate and kill the defenders. It's not that hard, but some bad hotkeys mean I almost lose a zeppelin to the tower. Hot on the trail of Sylvanas, Arthas finds himself face to face with his greatest foe, another Reforged mission. There are two elven bases, Silvermoon City to the north and a smaller outpost to the southeast. Every few minutes, the smaller base sends a runner to Silvermoon City. I get some gargoyles to intercept the runner. In the original mission, these were required, as the runner went through a canyon that was only accessible by air units. However, in the redesign, my ground army can easily intercept this runner. All the gargoyles do is waste 8 supply. Sylvanas attacks from the north and the east. Once she's reduced to low HP, she turns invisible and retreats. Did Reforged mission designers not know that hero units respawn in Warcraft 3? Why does she do this? All it does is trivialize the fight. 2 missions ago, I went mass meat wagons. Then, I went mass crit fiends. Now, I'm getting real creative, and I'm going meat wagons and crit fiends. Once Sylvanas has run away for the 50th time, I get tired of killing the runners. I go and smash the base they're coming from. I don't know what happens if a runner gets to Silvermoon City. Obviously they know that I'm here because Sylvanas is attacking me. This entire mission just doesn't make sense. Once I reach the gates of Silvermoon, Sylvanas does the only logical thing. She takes a small percentage of her forces and leaves the protective walls of her city to engage Arthas' vastly superior army in an open field. Well, at least I have a spooky ghost waifu now. Dead Sylvanas is really strong. The majority of defensive groups in the city have an archmage with them. Sylvanas can temporarily disable spellcasting in an area, making them useless. Once I reach the end of the city, I get to see the elves' tactical brilliance again. There's no bridge here, and this time the undead don't have access to zeppelins to... Are you kidding? In the lore, it's been like 10 minutes between this mission and the last one. When did Arthas learn to do this? Why doesn't Arthas do this before? Did the Reforged team actually play the campaign before designing this mission? Why has he never done anything like this again? Come on. Oh, and this final fight might be hard, but I couldn't tell because Arthas can just cheese it with Death Coil. From a gameplay perspective, I actually liked this mission a lot. I honestly think it's a better design than the original Warcraft 3 version in some ways, but the huge number of dumb and weird decisions Reforged team made about the story here leaves me really disappointed. Blackrock and Roll 2 is a very grindy mission where I must take down a fortified orc base. The orc armies are super strong, particularly their anti-ground firepower. Luckily, I get the big guns to help me out, the Frostwyrm. The Frostwyrm is the only unit with a combination of enough bulk to survive an ensnare from an orc raider, as well as being nimble enough to escape after the ensnare expires. The downside of the Frostwyrm is that it takes a ton of supply, 7 each. This, combined with the large army of low-quality units that I start with, means that I can only make an army of 9. There are 5 orc bases on the map. Only the red base in the northeast has to be destroyed, but all the other bases send fairly powerful attack waves against me, so I opt to eliminate them. Each base follows a similar formula. First, I send Frostwyrms to attack from an angle that they can't be easily hit. As the Wyrms are weakened, I send them back to Arthas to heal up with Death Coil and Unholy Aura. Once the anti-air has been eliminated, each of the Frostwyrms targets an individual production structure or tower with their Frost Breath, leaving them completely disabled while everything is cleaned up. Once the base is dead, Arthas grabs the item dropped by whichever hero guarded the base, and while this happens, incoming attack waves are soaked by my starting army. Kel'Thuzad's Frost Nova is incredible for defending, dealing tons of damage right as the fight starts. The red base attacks with literal dragons, by the way. They're significantly stronger than anything I have access to, including the frost worms. Once all of the optional bases are rubble, I move on to the main event. I bring Arthas and Kel'Thuzad to the front lines to assist my frost worms on this heavily defended base. Through the campaign, I've stockpiled 2 Scrolls of the Beast. I use one of them to breach this base. I also use a Scroll of Protection in tandem with Kel'Thuzad's Frost Armor ability, giving my worms an absurd amount of survivability for the fight. After Red's army is defeated, I disable his structures, use my remaining money to stock up on consumables from the Goblin Shop, and finish the mission. Reaching the Siege of Dalaran, I am unpleasantly surprised. Another Reforged mission, huh? As far as I'm concerned, Blizzard is 0 for 2 so far on remaking missions. Let's just get this over with. I unlock the final unit that I'll be using in the run, the Abomination. These bad boys are insanely tanky and do decent damage. They make a really solid frontline to supplement Arthas. From now on, Abomination, Crypt Fiend, Meat Wagon is going to be my army composition of choice. It doesn't exactly excel at anything in particular, but it isn't weak to anything either. The Siege of Dalaran is mostly an exploratory mission. My army moves its way through the labyrinth of a city filled with wizards, wards, and magical traps. There are 3 archmages that power anti-undead fields. The damage from these fields adds up quickly. I use the high burst damage of Deathcoil and Frost Nova to quickly eliminate the first archmage. After this, the map opens up a bit. The map winds back on itself, and there are branching paths that lead to bonus objective wizards. What surprised me is that the wizards don't just cast typical wizard spells, but varied spells throughout the game. This guy uses the Night Elf spell Cyclone, and this one has an invisible barrier that stops melee units from crossing. And this guy is a treasure goblin. The variety of spellcasters in this level reinforces the idea that Dalaran isn't just a city of wizards, but a place where any and all magics are explored and researched. And I love it! It felt like each and every encounter here was designed by someone that knew Warcraft and was looking to deepen the lore of the universe through a recreation of this mission. And they nailed it! Finally, it's time to fight Archmage Antonidas. Is this a legitimate boss fight in Warcraft 3? Whoa! First, Antonidas spawns groups of golems. I was responsible in my positioning, and the abominations tanked them easily. Then he spawns a bunch of elementals. I was not expecting a second wave. They're significantly stronger than the golems. Each of them has the Frost Nova spell, and they're blasting my tightly clumped abominations. Frantic death coiling to keep my magic weak abominations alive barely does it. At some point, Antonidas teleported into the fray as well. And then the game reminds me that this is Warcraft Reforged. The level 10 Archmage never actually spends any of his mana on spells, doesn't make water elementals, doesn't cast Blizzard. He just auto-attacks, and after taking a little bit of damage, teleports around. He goes down easily. Even though Antonidas himself was a bit of a letdown, the mission as a whole was fantastic. I really enjoyed exploring this city. At least one guy on the Reforged team really did care. Under the Burning Sky is a pretty typical defense mission. The only objective is to keep the AI Kel'Thuzad alive for 30 minutes. In the base Warcraft 3, this mission's actually pretty easy. The attack waves that come are moderately threatening, but are absolutely beatable with a good army composition and death coils. Reforged, on the other hand, is monstrous. The final attack is insanely bugged, to the point that I would call it broken. For the final wave in non-Reforged, each base sends an attack wave at the same time, making a difficult defense against a 3-pronged attack. In Reforged, they grab everything in attack. The spawned attack wave comes, all of the in-base defenders come, and they even pull the peons out of their gold mines and lumber mills to come and fight. All in all, the Reforged final attack wave has 3 to 4 times as many enemies as the normal game does on hard. This was miserable. It took many resets for me to get this right. Here's the plan that I came up with to beat this insane mission. 1. Take Acolytes 6 through 8 and haunt the expansion goldmine. 2. Build up an army of abominations Crypt Fiends to defend. I don't use meat wagons because their splash damage would hurting my abominations too much. 3. Whenever I receive Fell Hunters from Kel'Thuzad, I send them to the west to defend. 4. I start with 5 shades. Attack waves from the northwest can detect them, so I decide to go blind on that side. The other 2 sides never send detectors. 6. Aggressively engage the enemy attack waves as soon as possible, so they don't stack up. 7. At the 10-minute remaining mark, Kel'Thuzad gives 4 Infernals. They're extremely powerful and need to be used as a frontline tank. Even though they're technically demons, they can be healed by Death Coil. 8. When the timer reaches 9 minutes, I unsummon every building in my base for the 25% refund. With this money, I start building a network of necropolises to the west and northwest. 10. Hide my ghouls, shades, workers, and hellhounds in the bottom left-hand corner of my base. 11. Intercept the few incoming attack waves before they can get to my necropolises. 12. At the 1 minute and 30 second mark, this is where things start getting crazy. I grab Arthas away from the main attack force and send him to Kel'Thuzad. Send the Crypt Fiends to the safe zone in the bottom left of the map. The Abominations and Infernals go to the top left of my base to defend. Arthas starts chugging mana potions to top his mana off and starts passing all of his defensive gear to the allied Kel'Thuzad. This is the key that I was missing for a long time. It didn't occur to me that I could trade items to the AI ally. Bulking up Kel'Thuzad is the most important part of this strategy. The attack wave from the top left is the easiest by far to deal with. The Abominations and Infernals are enough to crush them. After that wave is down, the Abominations go to the bottom left-hand corner of the map, while the Infernals stick around. Ground units will continue clearing the necropolises, while a wave of 15 or so Griffin Riders dive on Kel'Thuzad. I don't intervene to stop them. Arthas uses a Scroll of Protection in order to give some bonus armor to Kel'Thuzad, and then starts spamming Death Coil to heal him up. Around now, the northwest enemy has broken through the majority of the necropolises, with about 40 seconds remaining. I try to use my Infernals to bait the blue enemy away. My Abominations had been hit by the Sorceress's slow ability. They were not able to retreat as fast as I thought. The blue army from the northwest was barreling down on them quickly. And right as the enemies start to collapse on Kel'Thuzad from all sides, the timer expires, and I'm victorious. This was one of the most tense missions in all of my Deathless runs so far. I thought that the Undead run would be similar in difficulty to the human, because Arthas can heal. But the final mission here was absurd. It took me hours to get right. Next up is Orc. Without any healing abilities on their heroes, this is where I expect the difficulty to start spiking. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to catch more of me, I stream daily on the GiantGrantGames Twitch channel. I also have a secondary YouTube channel that hosts the more goofy runs that I tend to do. And always, I want to thank my patrons, particularly Paint My Eye and Eeyore Lover. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon. Peace.